What's up, chat? How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Powerful Nothing. We're here today with a very cool budget deck tech for one of my favourite commanders of all time, Borborygmos Enraged. This big beefy Cyclops is 4 red, green. Yes, I know that's a very hefty mana cost, but it's worth it. For a 7/6 legendary creature Cyclops. It has Trample, and whenever Borborygmos Enraged deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. And this is where the fun part is. It also has the activated ability, discard a land card, Borborygmos Enraged deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Has it been errated to say any target? We'll never know. This whole lovely deck costs around $23 at time of recording. I'm looking at Moxfield. It says $23.81. And I know that's not including postage, but it's not including getting the worst, most beat up versions of a card either, so it should average around to be the $24 mark. Bobby is one of my favourite commanders of all time. It's one of my first commander decks, and, you know, we're doing some budget gameplay on the channel. This seemed like a perfect one to bring back. The plan of the deck is pretty straightforward. We are going to ramp. This is our ramp section down here. We're going to ramp and we're going to get Borborygmos into play. We're then going to throw a bunch of lands at our opponents, and that's generally how we're going to win the game. We have some damage doublers here to help with that process. We have some cards to bring back lands from our graveyard, so we can do it a bunch of times again and again. Borborygmos is a really cool and unique commander, and I'm really excited to play it in some upcoming gameplay. So what we're going to do today is break down the deck into the different sections. Here are the nice, lovely sections. This should match pretty closely the Moxfield link in the show notes below if you want to have a look there. But basically, I'm going to go over what's important and what I think makes the deck work in case you want to build it yourself. Let's start off with our card draw. Worth mentioning that because this is a deck for gameplay, generally decks for gameplay generally have more card draw and more ramp because you really don't want to get stuck on mana or cards when you're filming a bit of gameplay. A little spoiler behind the scene there. For this deck, we have 14 bits of card draw. That is higher than a regular deck, partly because Bobby is really a combo deck at the end of the day. What we're trying to do is get to a point where Bobby's in play and we're throwing lands around. So some of our card draw is a bit generic. Cards like Faithless Looting, cards like Bitter Reunion, or cards like Harmonize. These are the generic bits. These are things you'll find in basically any commander deck. Some more Borborygmos specific ones are cards like Keen Sense or Snake Umbra. These are cards that when a creature deals damage to an opponent, remember there, it doesn't say combat damage, we draw a card. So whenever we throw a land with Bobby at an opponent, we will draw a card. That's really good, especially as this is quite a high density land deck. We're actually running 42 lands here in the deck, so we have a higher chance of drawing them later in the game. Means we can throw them at our opponents, they work really well. We have some land-specific card draw with things like Dryad Greenseeker, Grapple with the Past, and Mulch. These are cards that care more about lands. Some of them also put lands into our graveyard. This is going to be very important for us later on as we get to our recursion section. Also, because Bobby is a 7/6, we have a card like Hunter's Insight. This is really solid at drawing us a bunch of cards. Hunter's Insight draws cards equal to the amount of damage. I'm doing this from memory, so hopefully this is right. It draws you cards equal to the amount of combat damage a creature does in a turn. So hopefully here we are drawing 7 cards when this connects. That brings us on to cards like Change of Fortune, Nullspine Dragon, and Dragon Mage. These all do some kind of wheelie, discard our hand, draw a bunch of cards style of effect. The goal late game is to play as many effects that just refill our hand as possible. We are in Gruul and we are a budget deck. That's why they're like, shockingly, no Wheel of Fortune in here or anything like that. But we have our early game card draw to help us hit our land drops, help us getting to the point where we can actually cast Bobby, and then our late game card draw refills our hand so we can start throwing 7 lands at an opponent and taking them out that way. The ramp section as well is huge. Look at this wedge of cards. We have 17 ramp or ramp adjacent cards here. That is a lot more than a regular deck. Normally you'd go somewhere between 10 and 12. We've gone 17. We have a 8-drop commander that is going to paint a bit of a target on itself. Therefore, we're probably going to have to cast it at least more than once. This will let us do that. Now, because this is a budget deck, there's no Soul Ring or super efficient cards. The best we've got is like staples like Kadama's Reach and Cultivate, and budget staples like things like Commander's Sphere. Those are our solid bits of ramp, as it were. What you'll generally notice with the rest of the ramp is that if it's not the good efficient bits, it's actually putting the ramp into our hand, which is not normally where you want it in a game of Commander. Normally, the term ramp means that you are going up in mana from what you were doing previously. A rampant growth effect, if you will. In this deck, cards like Sprouting Vines, a card that lets you get a bunch of lands into your hand based on the storm count, and cards like Seek the Horizon are really good because early game they're going to let us hit our land drops, but late game they become card draw with Borborygmos Enraged. Once Bobby's in play, we just want to have, like in an ideal world, we have 7 lands in our hand as soon as possible so we can just start hocking them around at instant speed at our opponents. If we had more cash for the budget, we would have probably gone for another effect that lets us play extra lands in a turn. We currently only have Mina and Den Wildborn. That is the cheapest one I could find. Who knows what Azusa is nowadays, but it's probably cheaper than it was when I started playing. Next up is our interaction section. I normally like running quite a lot of interaction in Commander. I like being able to kill things. We only have 8 bits in this deck, partly because Bobby throws damage around, so we don't need as many. So we've got 8 here. We have a couple of fight spells. These were, I mean, you can probably tell what the most recent pre-release I did based on this section. But we have some nice utility with a card like Suplex, nice and cheap. We have the budget Basilisk Collar in Venomous Fangs, giving Bobby Death Touch is quite nice. We just nick someone for 3 damage and then we can kill whatever creature we want. That is pretty tight. And because we have all this mana in play, we have some big mana board wipes with things like Savage Twister and Starstorm. This deck is going to put a lot of lands into play because of this ramp section, therefore having some big X spells at the top end is quite nice. Being completely honest with you all, the first 3 sections we've gone over, you could just make work with what you have in your chaff box. Do you have some ramp? Cool, run a lot of it. Do you have some card draw? Cool, run a lot of it. If you can get cards like Keen Sense, or maybe a card like Abundance, they are going to be very good because they're much more synergistic with the Commander. But these sections here aren't where I would spend the money if I was working on a budget. And to be honest, they're not where I've already spent a lot of money. The money cards in the deck are more like how we're actually going to win the game. So something that's great with Borborygmos Enraged is damage doublers. We have cards like Insult, Soulhorn Nemesis, Gratuitous Violence, Dictator of the Twin Gods, Angrath's Marauders, and Fiendish Duo. Now these are not necessarily the most efficient damage doublers, and there are even some damage triplers out there, but these are the ones that work within a relative budget. Why damage doublers are fantastic in this deck is because it turns a land from 3 damage into 6 damage. And you know what happens if you have 2 damage doublers? It turns that 3 damage from 6 damage into 12 damage. This is really what makes Bobby very scary. So of all the places to spend the money in this deck, it is the damage doublers. These are the best cards in the deck. We have some recursion here, mainly land-based recursion. So cards like Groundskeeper and Living Twister are nice ways of just like slowly regaining like 1 land a turn from our graveyard to our hand. Again, just so we have options late game when we want to start throwing our lands around. It really gets spicy with cards like Pair of Dice Lost, Reap the Past, Creeping Renaissance, and World Soul Rage. What these do is these effectively double up our lands. Say we throw a bunch of lands around, we then cast Creeping Renaissance, returning all of our lands from our graveyard to our hand, and we do it again. This is why in our card draw section we have cards like Mulch and Grapple with the Past. We're fine with stuff going to the bin if we need it to, because it can come back later on when we throw it again. In a way, these land recursion spells back to our hand are also damage doublers. So this whole section here, this lovely section here, is going to deal so much damage with Bobby, it's going to be phenomenal. Then for the boring stuff, because we have to respect our opponents a little bit, unfortunately we're not just goldfishing, we are running Snakeskin Veil and Ranger's Guile, again, because they were in my chaff box, and they'll do a decent job of stopping a Doomblade. We love that for us. We then have a couple of land-based win cons here. Turn to Basoa is just a nice little card that will make us some blockers whenever we start discarding lands. And then Timbleweed Rising is a very cheap card that will make us a 7/7. Being honest, a lot of the budget went on these damage doublers, so we had to delve deep into the chaff box to find a card that I think will be fine in the deck. And that's one of the nice things about Budget Commander, is that realistically, you don't have to play the most efficient bits. But I'm pretty positive if you've done a couple of pre-releases, you could put together this deck yourself pretty cheaply. Again, it's the damage doublers and the land recursion. These are kind of like the actual like real synergy. This is like the core bit of the deck. Everything else is just supporting it. In the past, I have built like a tier 3 like sleeved version of this deck, where it also runs into like some more landfall stuff as well. Cards like the Omnath from Battle for Zendikar and other landfall stuff works really well in this deck, especially if you do have the budget to kind of improve it to add more extra land turn type of effects. But unfortunately, Fast Bond is still banned in Commander, so you know, we'll make do with what we have. Our mana base is a little slim pickings. We have a Gruul Guildgate, a Rugged Highlands, an Evolving Wilds, and some basics. And as I mentioned, this is a 42 land deck, primarily because late game, once we got Bobby out, we want to be drawing lands. Lands are a good thing in this deck. But if this video has whet your fancy in terms of seeing this deck, Good news, depending on my editing schedule, the gameplay for this deck might already be out, or if not, it's going to be out in a couple of days. So with that in mind, do make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get notified when that video comes out. Alright, but thank you all very much for watching. Do like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let me know what you think of my boy Bobby here. Do you think he's got what it takes to take down a game of Commander? Until next time, we'll see you all soon. Take care. Goodbye.